Can you hear me now? Great, great. Just 1 more minute, please, and we're about to start. Today we speak about building a tech startup. This is the Q&A session, and today we have our special guests, our invited experts. Great, great. Just 1 more minute, please. Yes, and I just about to say that we have a special guests today, and I'm gonna make introduction shortly. So please prepare your questions. It's gonna be the real live broadcast discussions. Any questions about building a tech startup, any challenges, issues, the problems to solve during your startup development, please feel free to prepare your question, and we are happy to share all the knowledge, all the insights about building a tech startup, product development, team build. One more time. Is all okay now, right? Great. Okay, and as I said, just a few last checks before we go live, and just share the link with you. Feel free to share across your social media, and we're just about to start our session. One more time. Just waiting for your confirmation that you can hear me and we're able to start. Right, great. Okay, good evening, everyone. I just checked our YouTube broadcast and our other stream channels. So good evening, everyone. Today we have a special live broadcast session, How to Build a Tech Startup Q&A session. We have our special guests tonight, and I'm going to introduce them shortly. And so today it's very real-time discussion, all the aspects of building a tech startup. So feel free to prepare your question, and we are happy to answer. Just a quick information regarding our social media. We are on Instagram, on Twitter, WhatsApp group for our Eligent Club community, Facebook group, LinkedIn, and email in case you need to contact us. And just again, explanation what our Eligent Club is about for our guests who first time joining our session. Eligent Club is the community of tech entrepreneurs all across Europe building own digital tech startups, and our community is helping those entrepreneurs to build successful tech projects via the multiple activities like workshop, mentorship sessions, consultancy, networking events, pitching days, and many more. So if you'd like to see what exactly we do, feel free to join our to take a look at our website. And also, as I mentioned before, we run multiple activities, and one of them our Eligent Accelerator program. And I'm very pleased that our special guests today are official mentors of Eligent Accelerator program. It's a 6-month program for early stage tech startups aiming to bring product to the market. And so please check out if you'd like to know more. And just a quick announcement about what's going to happen next. So next Thursday, we speak about how to win a startup pitch competition at a special workshop, and practices the good advice and tips how to make the pitch outstanding and what to do. Also, on 30th of April, we have technologies and product development for a tech startup workshop. Also, purely focused on R&D, what technologies to implement for startup development. Any tech questions, feel free to join us. Also, what is very interesting, and this is going to be our first Eligent Startup Weekend. It's a weekend for those who are just about to come with some startup idea and maybe to find some co-founder. So during the startup weekend, we are able to connect individuals and form teams, help them to build own remote teamwork process and develop a project online. So our Eligent Startup Weekend online, check out on our website. And the main event of this spring, Investment Pitch Day on 28th of May, first online edition of our Investment Pitch Day, which we usually do in London. So 28th of May, please check out the date, and hopefully you can join us. And please also prepare your questions for right now, because today also I need to say that on 26th, 28th of November, we will have the first international film festival about startups, and we will showcase the best works about startups all across the globe in 7 categories. And I'm pleased to inform our official mentors of Eligent Accelerator program. They are invited, and they get invitation to join the award ceremony. And the winner of the best question today are welcome to join our award ceremony and get invitation to our film festival. So please prepare your question, and we will select the best question of the session tonight, and we will provide the details to come to the award ceremony. So We're just about to start. Again, if you have any questions, please email us at info@eligent.club. And now I'm delighted to introduce our mentors. And let me introduce our first expert tonight. It's Marka Poliafika from London, UK. So Marka, I just made you presenter. And if you can double check your camera, your sound, because we obviously have some tech issues today. So I just want to make sure. So yes, and Marka, we are waiting for you. So now please prepare your, feel free to chat your question in our chat. Well, you can click on yourself and check out your camera icon. So please ask your first questions in our chat group, and we are happy to answer straightforward. So please, Mark, if you can double check your camera and your sound. So feel free to ask. It's all on. So yeah, I just made you presenter. So if you can check your camera, maybe you need to get a permission to use your camera. So yes, if you can double check. Do you have to MVP or prototype before I can raise funds? So we are waiting for Marka, and hopefully he's going to join us, and looking forward to know the answer. And so yeah, Marka, if you can try. Yes, you are. But if you can double check your sound. So
can you hear me now?
Yes.
That's great. Thank you. Hi, Slava. Hi, everybody. How are you? Hope you're all safe and healthy. And thanks for having me on board.
Pleasure. Please introduce yourself, and we have the first question about MVP and prototype before raising the funds. So if you can make first introduction about you, and then we will start replying the questions.
Okay, yeah, we'll go very quickly. Actually, I don't want to steal any time from actually this is a very interesting discussion. So yes, as you said, I'm one of the people who try to support startups. In my professional life, I currently work in financial services, so doing financial modeling. But my career has always been spent within the almost always within the renewable energy sector, in the middle between modeling, operation, and strategy. And that is my main interest when it comes as well to startups. So support the strategy, the business modeling, and it is also what I've been doing in the last couple of years. Also thanks to the MBA, which I'm finally glad to say I'm completing. Yeah, I will stop here, to be honest. So then it's useless to do a full presentation of the CV, and let's see what we can talk about with your guest, maybe.
Sure. We got the first question again about do I need to have MVP or prototype before I can raise funds? What's
That's a very easy question. Yes, is the answer. I will spell out more. And I don't remember whether we talked about exactly about this topic last time. So let's try to get into the reason why. So the problem is we are getting, based on the question, we want to have funding. So we look for funders. We look for people who want to give us money. And actually, now I remember this was one of the questions that I replied to you through email, and I made an analogy, and I said, if any of the guests would be willing to buy from me a car based on the drawings. So I take a piece of paper and I draw a car and I give you a car, and I say this is like £20,000. If there is anybody who will be willing to invest based on a drawing, then I wrote in my mail as a form of a joke, then I will become richer because I'm good at drawing, but I'm not that good at manufacturing the cars. So let's move from the analogy into the real life. What happens is that you as entrepreneur, you are asking for money. You are asking people to put their money, and that is a risk. So they want to mitigate the risk. Put yourself in their shoes. They want to mitigate the risk. They want to actually see that where they put the money in is reliable. It's going to have a success. It's going to sell a lot, being a product or a service. And hence, they want to see something. And to be honest with you, more than not only an MVP, they want to see as well some track record. So why track record can be a bit wider definition than just the MVP. The MVP is a minimum viable product, and it shows that actually the idea, the creative idea that you have in mind as an entrepreneur works. So you're ready to develop it. You show the principle. If it is a platform, you show that it actually works. If it is a service, you show actually how the flow of the service works. But an MVP doesn't show yet that it is actually sought after by people, by the audience. So, who are the buyers? And in saying that, I mean to say that the investor wants to see the MVP, which is good that it works. So, first step, actually, it's something that people want to buy, want to pay for. In economics, uh, sometimes we talk about the willingness to pay. It is applied to other principles, but in terms of product, when they are on the market, what is the willingness to pay from potential buyers? So an investor who actually can see a track record, an initial track record, of course, they don't expect to see actually millions and millions of items sold on the market, but an investor that can see an initial track record, then we say, okay, that's good actually. This product is sought after. There is a track record. They start selling. Uh, so I would say I would expand the definition of MVP even to an initial track record, and that is really what investors want to see. So I hope that. So in summary, I said yes to reply directly to the question, and then I said actually why do they want to see the MVP? I went with an analogy and I explained that we need to prove, we need to give the proof. But then I added, I went one step further and I said, actually, on top of the MVP, most likely they want to see some initial track record. So that is the structure of my answer. Hopefully, it brings some clarity.
Right. Just a small add-on, just to kind of to follow up from how much are we looking to invest before we can raise funds? So I suppose how much we can spend in order to build some MVP or product of maybe our pocket money, I guess. Yes. So how to make this the first basic version of product before we actually can go to investors? What would you recommend? How much money to spend?
So I think this question is very tricky, but let me decompose it because and let's see whether I can rephrase it, because the way you asked is how much I can invest, how much I can spend before I build the MVP. But then the initial question maybe should be how much I can spend before I can go to the investors. And they are two different things. They are two different things because first of all, how much can I spend to have an MVP? That really depends on the type of product that you want to build, and definitely the best advice here is save as much money as you can. Nowadays, for an high-tech company, for digital companies, there are a lot of open source platforms, software, coding services, and really you can save money. So the question how much can I spend before producing an MVP depends really on the type of product that you have to build and the services and what you have to put together to have the MVP. Whereas let's go on a more interesting side of it, how much I can spend or should I spend before going to the investors. Uh, in this case, the question becomes a bit more interesting because well, of course, that is still related to the threshold that you can spend, that you can afford. So before going to the investor, what you might have done is to look for money from your savings, family and friends. Uh, there are the three F. I don't remember where I heard that in some podcast. There are the three F that give you money. There are family, friends, and fools. So you look for this type of sources to get some money, your savings, of course. And it is a threshold. So that is, of course, the more you can spend, the better it is. But then the point is, and this is more interesting now, the more you spend, the higher should be the evaluation of the company. So if you're going to the investors, then the valuation before and after the buying, the investment process gets a completely different shape. What do I mean with this? So if I spend, and let's say in this, I'm making an assumption here. I'm assuming that what you spend is equivalent to what it goes into your balance sheet as an asset, tangible or intangible. Okay, so let's assume that what you spend is not a waste of money, but really adds value. So I'm making this assumption. It's not perfect, but let's make this assumption. So if I spend £100, I can claim value of £100 plus the value that I create through my sweat equity, through my work. But if I spend £10,000 and I bought already some laptop, I bought already some license for a software, not only that is money that doesn't need to be spent further, because, for example, if you need a license and if you already spent on it, you don't need to look for further money to buy again the same license, assuming that is a lifetime license. So first of all, the more you spend, the less you ask for the investor, which means the share that you're able to retain is higher. But also, the more you spend, the more, based on the assumption that I did before, the higher is the evaluation of your company before the VC round or the investor round, basically, whatever that might be. And the higher will be the value that you can say. So I have a startup whose value is 10,000 rather than
Yeah.
100,000. And of course, I'm simplifying a lot. I say that what you spend is equivalent to the value on the balance sheet. That's not always the case. And in particular way, we hope that we have some more, actually, because we have the intangibles, which is all the sweat equity that you put in, the value that you bring, which is non material. So I
Right.
hope I gave an answer to that question, bringing on board this process of buying and evaluation as well, which gives more value to the question.
Mark, thanks a lot. I just we got another question, and I want to connect Evgeny Galeot. Evgeny, if you're around, because we got another question about building an MVP, and Tony asking us if it's need to use freelancers, software development companies, or build in-house team. What would be the best approach? Evgenia, if you can join us and connect to the conversation, that would be great. Yes, and feel free to make a quick introduction, and let's answer this question because it's quite actual one. So
Yes, thank you. So I'm Eugenio Galiotto, and I've been working in tech for more than 10 years now. I'm 25 years old, and I've had the opportunity to work with different type of technologies as a software engineer and electronics developer, and also in the business side, because I had my own startup, and I've been in accelerators and in very nice startups, among which Scape Technologies, now acquired by Facebook. So my story is essentially jumping from one technology to another in order to build new products and to build innovation. So this is the goal. And today I study AI, and in general the conjunction of tech and business in order to create the best product as a whole and the best company as a whole. Because of course my goal is to create a startup, my next startup. And so I'm working on this. Um, so regarding the question, I would avoid freelancers because they are expensive. They don't take care about your product in a way that as a founder is is required. And in general, yeah, they're expensive. But they don't take direct responsibility of the product, and you don't have them as a value in your company because when you don't hire them, what they learn about the product, about the technology, and the goal is not something that you retain in the company. So it's not a value that you can bring to your investors or in general to your growth. The second thing is that software development companies, it's something that can make sense, but I think in an MVP phase, in which you want to assess your product and your market, so your product market fit, and you want to understand if what you're doing makes sense or not. But there's a fact, because even for the software development companies, there's the problem that you don't have the clear view of who is working on what. So you don't know who takes care about your product, and this can be dangerous because as you scale, maybe a lot of things are not taken in consideration in the proper way. It's just about building software and whatever in whatever way. So I would consider it as a way to save time when it comes to find the product market fit, but not as a way to continue unless there is a trustworthy relationship in which you know exactly who is working on what, and in which the software development company has an interest that is not just money, but maybe it's a share. So there's a clear interest about the product. Creating a team, I think, is the best way, because you create and retain knowledge. You define the standards. You define the way a product has to be built, and you're creating value. The first value of your company before your product is your team. So that is the best selling point when it comes to get an investment. When it comes to retain the intellectual property, and when it comes to understand how to scale, because you define your team in a small size. So at that point, you can work on improving the process, improving the people, finding the right tools. This is the best way to scale when you will be ready to scale. If you scale with someone external, it's hard to define the right processes that make you scale.
Great, and we just got a next quick question. Can a single person startup raise funds, or needs to be two founders minimum? Mark and Evgeny, please tell us your feedback.
Do you want to go first, Evgeny, or do you want me to give a stab at it?
It's the same. Just go first, you, if you want.
Okay. Let's be realistic again. So let's look at the other side of what the investors want to see. They want to see a reliable product. We focused before on the MVP, so that is the product. But I typically say, and I hope this doesn't sound too much controversial, but the product is not a business. I keep saying this to all my mentees, and sometimes they look at me and they say, what do you mean by that? The product is not a business. The product is the tool that helps you make money, makes a business. But as a matter of fact, the business needs marketing, HR. Before, Eugenio was making a great point about retain the assets, and the assets are mainly the people. Hence, you need the HR, you need marketing, you need finance, you need strategy, you need operations. You need so many things. That is the business. The business model is embeds all these elements. So if we use this as a starting point, then when it comes to the single founder versus the more founders, the point is it's not that the investor feels lonely or less lonely because he has the company of 1, 2, 3, 4 people. The real problem is he wants to see a reliable business model. Hence, let's be realistic. How many skills, how many competencies can have the single person? If the single founder thinks that he can be a great and he's expert already in products, project management, marketing, HR, so many different things, then good luck. And yes, that might be suitable. They might be, it might tick all the boxes. I personally find it quite unlikely. I think a little bit of being humble from this point of view might help. Now, that doesn't mean that from the very beginning you need a full team of people. That is part of how you scale up. Is part of the journey, of the progression that you make. But most likely, again, talking about reliability, the investor will want to see competencies to manage the business, not only the product. Hence, maybe not. I wouldn't say that's enough. And by the way, sorry, the higher the level of the investors, that it depends on the scale of the company, of course, because here we are talking about investors. But then, there are VC, there are pension funds, there are small family offices, like angel investors, and different scale of investors might require different type of guarantee. They might want to see different structure. Uh, but definitely, I think it's fair to say that the higher you go, and the more unlikely is that one single person, unless he or she is able to claim expertise on all those fields. Because the problem again is not how many people, is how many skills. I think we cannot hear you, Slava.
Yeah, we cannot hear you.
Marco, yes, thanks
Yes.
a lot. Evgenia, like, if you can tell us your opinion.
So it's about a few aspects. One of them is reliability, because when you are a sole founder, it's not easy to manage all the hard work that you have to do, both from the skills point of view and from the personal point of view. It's not easy to stay hard working 20 hours a day, every day that is required. And also it's about the passion you put in some skills. So you have the CTO, which is the tech passion, the tech passionate person that is happy to work on the tech side, while you have the CEO that is happy to work on the legal side. So in general, the magic number. When I was at EF, I made the same question, and Entrepreneur First, which is an accelerator in London and in a few other cities of Europe and Asia. So the magic number they like is two, a CEO and a CTO, and I agree. Because these you can separate the workload, and you can make you can reliably talk with your co-founder about what's going on, and about understanding things that maybe you as a sole founder you cannot easily understand unless you have a very deep experience both from the business and the tech point of view. It's hard. So in general, investors prefer, and it will be great to have another co-founder that is at the same level of you or maybe even higher, that helps you define the goals. And in general, yeah, outside the message is that you are reliable, because if you're off one day, there's another co-founder that can work, that can make the company working continuously. So there is another thing, actually. It's hard to find a co-founder. It's very hard. So in some cases, being a sole founder may be a faster option. So in that case, you have to be sure that you can do the hard work in the lean way. So maybe you cannot develop the entire MVP. So maybe you have to delegate the development of the MVP, because you have to focus on the high level goals. So this can be one thing. Another thing is to consider maybe a product that has to be smaller, because in that case, if you are the only one who is building the product, you cannot think about a bigger product. It's very hard to develop a big product. And in general, yeah, you have to be very passionate about your product, because it's also something about enthusiasm that you may lose over time. So it's better to have a co-founder, and in the worst case, maybe you can be a sole founder, but be ready to study a lot, to stay at the high level, and to think as a manager rather than as a developer if you are a CTO like, or as a finance guy if you are a CEO like person. I think this is the point.
Marco, Eugenio, thank you very much. Now I would like to connect our next experts. So thank you very much for staying. Please contribute in our chat. So we have the next question, and I would like to invite Sharon Wright. to join our conversation. And the question we got, what are the first steps we should do to build a tech company? For example, have an investment deck, build a prototype, what the process of building a tech company. So please, Sharon, if you can check your camera and video and join the conversation. And also, I would love to invite also Mark Elliott. Mark, please welcome to join and come to the discussion. Sharon, good evening. So please introduce yourself one more time, and we can see you now. And we got the questions about what are the first 3 steps to build a tech company. So Sharon, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, a little bit about my background, because my background is with big brands. So I spent 17 years with Nike and Adidas. So I am very much marketing and sales. And since leaving there, my last role that I had with them was as a global go-to-market director, which was essentially running a business unit. So looking at everything from how we took that product to market, how we took it across multiple markets, how we've created the feedback loops, etc., etc. So it was everything from product, sports marketing, looking at product life cycles and margins. So I probably bring a little bit of a different angle to the rest of the group with a lot of extensive knowledge around tech startups. So if it's a marketing and sales related question, then I'm more than happy to answer those questions. I think in answer to that question is where you would start. There's a few bits that I would feel I can answer, because I've since started my own company and worked with multiple startups and quite a few tech products as well. And I think the biggest thing that I see is them not really looking and having that vision, as Marco mentioned before. It's about building that whole business plan. So what is that? What's the brand going to look like? What do you want it to look like? And thinking about how it's going to be in 10 years' time. And really, that's where you have to set that tone from the very beginning. And that's about having that right brand strategy and what that looks like across every single touch point. And that, for me, is crucial, whether it's in an investor deck or whether that's taking on your first and onboarding your first employees, who are ultimately the biggest advocates that you'll ever have of your brand. So that's what I've just been working on that with a number of clients, as to how even the internal communications of what your brand stands for. And then the key messaging and really truly understanding who your core customers are and translating it from a product into what that messaging means and to those people. So that's a little bit from my side. But if anyone's got any other questions, please let me know in the comments.
So Sharon, again, coming back to your introduction part. So as you mentioned that your background is main background in marketing. So maybe building a tech company or any company, is it about maybe thinking about the brand, thinking about the marketing message, first, and initially what exactly you want to build first before actually building any investment pitch, finding any tech developer for the product you're trying to build? The first question probably what exactly you're trying to do, isn't it? Sorry.
Your mission and your values, and having come from Nike, that was instilled in us right the way through everything that we did, and it doesn't matter where you were in that company, you knew what that brand stood for. And I think you're seeing some excellent examples of that right now coming through from leaders in the handling of this crisis and how they're addressing their employees first. And, I think you can watch that. But I think if you look at some of the products that we know really well, Airbnb, Uber, they're ultimately brands that we know and we resonate with. So if you have to think like that in the thought right now at this stage, definitely. And I've seen it with a number of clients that I've worked with as well, where there might be multiple products within their platforms, and thinking again how that resonates when you go from your home market into other international markets, and all the nuances that come with that as well, in terms of trademarking, etc., etc. So not that I'm an expert on that side.
Well, Sharon, 100% I agree with everything you said now. Mark Elliott is online as well. Mark, please, if you can also introduce yourself and give us your opinion on the same question. What are the steps to build a tech company, or maybe any company? Is it about the brand or something we also should, keep in mind about? Please, Mark.
Okay. Hi. I feel very old, but I'm not. I started I've had 3 careers. My first career is probably most relevant. I played around in call centers and call technology for UK and European organizations. And then I was lucky enough to join a Bay Area startup that went on to IPO on NASDAQ. And what else do we do with that? Oh, yes, we sold it for $1.5 billion to Alcatel, which is quite dull. So, and now I do things and teach and coach different companies. So, what are the 3 things you should do when thinking about starting a tech company? Well, you need to have a profitable business idea, number 1. So you should make sure you have a viable, profitable business idea. Step 2, before raising funds, is have proof that you can access this market. And step 3, have a coherent presentation of this business, including the brand, including the future, for audiences who might share the vision that you're creating. That sounds a bit bland, doesn't it? So the first one is have a good idea which is profitable. Second is be able to prove that you and your team are going to make a go of this. And 3, be coherent about how you are talking about your business. So, yeah, you need a pitch deck. Yeah, but you're going to have the details for that pitch deck. And some of those details are going to be about the story you're going to tell to customers, to suppliers, to your internal audience when you grow to be 300-400 people. But you need to be coherent and consistent for your investors when it comes through to that. So that'd be my 1, 2, 3. But I notice, Eve, who answered the question, that you've been plugging away at this for 6 years and that you have a non-digital business at the moment. So one extra thing for you is this digital business is different almost entirely to your offline business. If this new tech business is a digital only, then yeah, you've got 6 years really detailed experience. But from an investment angle, unless you position it really cleverly, you have no experience in delivering this digital opportunity. So yeah, all of the experts you've heard answering your questions would need to know in detail about your concept before you can read in to what we're saying about your business.
Mark, thanks a lot. Just the following question. Derek Stewart is also here. Derek, good evening. Thanks for joining our discussion. Today we speak about building a tech startup. Feel free to comment, ask your question. We have a special guest today, our 6 mentors of Eligent Accelerator program. And the next question, Mark and Sharon, if you can contribute your opinion as well. So initial meeting with the possible CTO or maybe someone, I guess the first co-founder joining a team. And the question, is it possible to offer equity, salary? Is it acceptable? And how much to dedicate, how much equity to dedicate to tech co-founder if it's, I guess, crucial for the business? So how to negotiate about this? What's your opinion?
So this CTO, are they a real person? What's their situation? Who are they? What are their expectations when they come into this? Do they have to eat? Do they have a job at the moment? I don't need to know that. All I need to know is you're going into a meeting with a CTO. Yes, equity, if they're going to be an honest co-founder, why wouldn't they have the same amount of equity as you? Don't know. If you're going to pay them salary, do you pay yourself salary? Do you have revenue coming in? Why would you pay them salary if you're also going to make them a co-founder? I don't know. Oh yeah, I don't know who they are. Do you know who they are? Because when you go into talking with co-founders, the co-founder really needs to buy into this vision that you have at the moment for your company. You need co-founders, and you need to have them buy in and believe the same vision that you have. And then from here on in, you're co-founders. You may have spent a bit more time than them on it, but you're co-founders. You share everything, good times, bad times, raising equity, sweating, working the long hours, walking the short hours. But it depends, really. Who are they? What do they need? What motivates them? So yes, equity, yes, salary if they need to live. What do you think, Sharon?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. I mean, I've been offered lots of opportunities around sweat equity, but there really wasn't anything in it for me at that point. I mean, I'm going to take my consulting fee every day, I'm afraid, at that point. But I think I mean, if you're looking at that level and it's a co-founder, absolutely. I mean, it's 50-50. And I think I've come across people, it's really challenging for people to then go, but this is my baby and this is me giving this half of this away, you know. And I think I've heard that, I've literally witnessed that from people as well. And I mean, that is what it becomes. You are ultimately, if you want to succeed with it and you need that person on board, they're all in, aren't they? So yeah, really good points, Mark.
All right. So what if we have 3 co-founders? Does it mean that we have to split 33 each? What would you suggest? Is it more tricky, no?
If you're running a cooperative, then it will be a cooperative where you are adding into the additional value. If you've got 5 co-founders, you haven't got 5 co-founders. You've got different roles and tasks. You've got people working together. You haven't got 5 co-founders. You've got 5 early employees.
Nothing to add. Mark, Sharon, thanks a lot. Now I would like to invite our next guest, but please stay around because we're gonna ask for more opinions from you. Please. Now I would like to invite Lorenzo Espinoza. So Lorenzo, if you can check your microphone and if you can check your connection in order to join our discussion, and maybe you can give us your opinion about the equity structure, how to make it work, what is the best approach, how to dedicate equity to your team and make sure they're happy. And especially, I guess it's at the idea stage or MVP building stage where you don't have any cash flow, there is no income, you're just trying to build some kind of the first version of your product. How would you recommend to do so? So we're just waiting for Lorenzo, and hopefully he's gonna join us very shortly. Please. Yes, yeah, I guess already. Yes, Lorenzo. Can you double check your sound, please? We cannot hear you yet. So.
Can you hear me now?
Great. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the introduction, Slava. I guess yes. I'll just give you a a quick 2 minutes about me. So yeah, it's just as a quick background. So my experience has been also in tech for the majority of my career. I started in the States. I'm originally from Spain, but moved to the States to start my career in action analytics in a very traditional setting, such as manufacturing. But I quickly moved into product innovation, product strategy at Amazon, which is where I spent 2 years of my career doing product innovation and program management for their logistics business, the last mile delivery business in Seattle in the headquarters. And then I relocated to Europe to pursue an MBA at London Business School. I graduated from LBS last July, and I joined this company called Chattermill. It's a customer feedback analytics company. We basically use AI to provide analytics around free text, right, or unstructured text. And for that company, just some background, I lead their data team. So I'm in charge of the whole data operations and data product for this company. And I guess in terms of the question you posed, Slava, yeah, it's definitely an interesting one, and I fully recommend the guests to take a look at the book I shared on the chat. Definitely outlines some of the questions that you're posing, such as equity, number of founders, who to ask to be your founder, etc. The question about the equity, I fully agree with Sean and Mark. It's a very, very tricky one, but it's important that it is. It's kind of the elephant in the room, right? So you have to really speak about it. So first of all, you have to consider who your founders are, how many you need, depending on your overlap with your skill sets, with kind of your background or kind of the needs of your business. Depending on how many there are, then you'll have to split the equity accordingly. And of course, as Mark said, you also have to take into account the level of involvement of these people, because if you have 5 co-founders, again, it'll be very hard that those 5 people contribute to the same level. So I think beyond 3 co-founders, the equity discussion becomes a bit hard. But yeah, in terms of the question itself, when it comes to being co-founders, it's really it's a relationship, right? So when you're meeting your co-founder, you're gonna be in it, or for the good and the bad, you're gonna be in together. So you have to share equity accordingly. So it's again, if you're 2 co-founders, CTO, CEO, but that is why it's so important to really understand who you're about to get into business with, so that you can actually be confident that the person you're going to give potentially half of your company is actually the right person, is going to help you push your vision forward. Sorry, go ahead, Sal.
No, I'm completely agree with you, and I guess just also as a kind of add-on questions, it's probably off topic apart of the equity, but I think it's quite actual question for a lot of early stage startup founders. And as you know, a lot of startup founders, they trying to have some a day-to-day job and to cover the expenses and to survive and pay the bills. And also they trying to build some product and maybe some MVP building and so on. So looking back to your experience, what would you suggest for those who, for people who have a job from 10 to 6? So would you recommend to work in the evenings daily for your product development and make some first steps or any activities related to a startup on daily basis? Or it's better to dedicate maybe 2 days across the week purely for your startup with no distraction to your in terms of your another work? So what would you recommend? Is like kind of create a routine of being involved in your startup on daily basis, or just a kind of the split activities across the week? What would you suggest?
I think, well, first of all, I think the approach that you mentioned, as in having a starting as a side job, like the startup journey as a side job, is, in my opinion, has been very, very advisable, so to speak. So the kind of the successful founders that I've seen have taken that first step as a side kind of a side business, so to speak, because you have to consider that you go through many ups and downs as an entrepreneur, and the first of those is money, right? Where do I get the money to finance my my business or my prototypes, my ideas, etc. That's like in most cases from your 9 to 5 job. When it comes to how long to dedicate to your side business on a weekly basis, I guess it depends on the kind of activity you're trying to do, or kind of where in the journey you are, right? And also the number of people you're working with. But in general, the more momentum you gain throughout the week within your means or the time, it's going to be critical. Of course, your weekends are kind of the golden opportunity for you to really push your business forward, especially if you're working with someone else as a co-founder in your business idea, because that's when you will have more time to dedicate to your idea. But again, I'd say the more it doesn't have to be like 4 hours each day, but the more gradual or consistent your work is on your business idea, the better outcome you'll have, especially in the very early stages when it's all about validating your idea, validating that you're actually solving a problem, validating that there are actually customers who want to pay for the solutions you're providing to the problem. So it's a lot of conversations, customer validation, customer discovery that needs to take place. And of course, the more ongoing, or the more if you do that on a continuous basis, it'll be even better for you to gain knowledge and feed and iterate and adjust your plan.
Great. And as a following question, which is probably going to be a tricky one. So imagine if two co-founders, one dedicated full-time to startup development and another one working as a part-time, I don't know, on a normal job, and then partly developing startup. Does it mean that it's not possible to have 50-50 equity? Because probably not really fair. Someone would say, "Oh, I'm working like full time, and you work just 3 days a week." How would you discuss about that? And I guess how to compromise on this? Is it related to time you dedicate to startup, or it's more about the outcome of each co-founder's work due to the startup?
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely a very, very interesting question. I think so at the very early stages, it's critical that the relationship is seen as kind of as equals, right? So I've seen a lot of startups where founders who started, as you said, as part-time founders. Then one of them really was bought into the vision and quit the job and was fully dedicated to the startup. But then the other founder decided that, well, it was potentially not the right time. He wanted to see where the startup was going for a bit longer. So that definitely had an impact on the equity, potentially not long term, but it's almost like you have to factor that in as well, because it's kind of be seen as almost like a different commitment, and almost like the time you put into it. It is not a linear relationship with the output that you bring, but especially if all the conversations, all the work, all the iterations that you have to go through, especially in the early stages, if you're not part of all that on a kind of a full-time basis, it'll be hard for you to almost like keep up, right? So what I've seen work in the past is, potentially leave those equity discussions to a bit further down the line, almost like kind of in an effort to grow the pie, almost like include clauses, right? So if by month 3 we've hit this number of potential buyers, then you'll quit your job, and then we'll go through to this percentage of equity, which will be 50-50. If by month 3 we haven't hit those numbers, then potentially you will stay on, but you potentially can become an advisor with potentially like 5%, 1 to 5% equity, and then I'll be the main founder, right? So it has to be those, again, just to my previous point about the elephant in the room. Those discussions are actually healthy, and if they're not had up front, it can hurt both the relationship between the founders, but also the future of the company.
Lorenzo, thank you. And we have following question. I just want to say to our new attendees that we speak about building a tech startup. Feel free to ask any question in chat. And Mark, if you can also join us, we have the next question. Mohammed asking us, is it okay to work for a long time alone, like 6 months, or should I include someone else and split the equity? Lorenzo, Mark, what's your opinion?
Lorenzo, you want to go first, or you want to?
Yeah, you can go, Marco. Go for it.
Shall I?
Please.
To be honest with you, in this case, in terms of working on my own as opposed to bring somebody on board, rather than looking at the equity, which, as Lorenzo said, might be a discussion that we might have later on. I mean, it's always good to bring clarity, but the slice of the cake, can be done later on. To be honest with you, if I had a choice, I would bring somebody on board, but not because of the equity, but because of the fact that people are the most complicated and valuable at the same time asset of a company. To me, having somebody as a co-founder should be like dating. You know somebody, you know that you can spend time with them, with him, her, whoever they are. You can rely, you can trust, you enjoy working together. There will be difficult times. Mark was very eloquent in his narrative about the answering to the question about the co-founder and what is his expectation, what are his or her values, what do they bring on board. So if anything else, to me, the choice is dictated by the possibility to work with somebody. The equity matter is important, of course. Yes, we keep in mind. And of course, if we bring somebody on board early stage, it will, he or she, as always, will have worth more, and possibly they will deserve a slightly wider slice of the cake. But to me, the most important part is really the human side. So building the team, having the possibility to work with somebody. If you think that that is a good partner, so that might be something to think of. And by any means, to be honest, all the questions that we receive,
Right.
I always say that entrepreneurship is a fantastic, but also damn complicated journey. And each journey is different. It's really like going on holiday. But hopefully you don't get back, because when you are on the other side, you are transformed. You are a new person. You created something new. You brought to life, to use the words from Sharon, you brought to life your baby. And it's true. Many entrepreneurs say, oh, this is my baby. So yeah, for a baby, maybe we need parents. So let's create this team. But also let's remember that people are important and we need to manage the relationships. So I would find these aspects more important than the consequence on the equity, if it makes sense. So I would decide whether or not to bring somebody on board as a priority based on the fact that I would like to have the possibility to work with them and to see how we work together as a priority. And then I would think about the consequence on the equity. But let's see, Lorenzo, you might have an opposite view. The nice part of the debate is that experience is so different. So please Lorenzo.
No, I actually completely agree with you, Marco. In which you said, like it's like kind of creating a kind of launching a business with a co-founder is almost like dating. And your co-founder is exactly that, like a dating exercise. Because as I said before, like you're in this together and you're in this for the good and for the bad. So you want to make sure that the person you're going to work with or you're going to launch a business with is in it for the same reasons, with the same level of commitment. So I fully agree that equity, yes, again, it needs to be discussed. It needs to be understood and completely, it needs to be completely transparent across the two founders. But it's again, the first step, as Marco said, is definitely try to understand whether you would like to work with this person and that person would like to work with you. And also, even if you both would like to work with each other, how well you actually interact. And the only way of kind of doing that is potentially like working a couple of months together and running a few projects, or the very early stages of the business, or the validation steps to make sure that you actually bond and work well together, and then you can move to next steps or discuss the next steps in the engagement. And if the equity discussion is that next steps, then so be it.
Well, thank you very much for your opinion. If you don't mind, I would add my my points. I guess it's much better to have 50% of successful company rather than 100% of nothing. So coming back to the question, do you need to work for 6 months alone? Well, the question also assume like it's enjoyable process. Maybe you can make it together with someone, and it's becoming more exciting, more interesting, and also more successful. So. Yes, we have another question from about how do you calculate how much equity to give away to investor? What's the kind of the methodology behind? What would you suggest, Lorenzo?
Sorry, let me turn my video back on.
Yep. Yep. You are.
Yeah, that depends on this kind of investor you're raising from. So, and the early stages or stage your business is at. So, if you're raising from a venture capital, normally the venture capital will have an initial view of the valuation of your business based on your revenue, on your projected revenue. They'll have some sort of valuation on that using multiples and using what's called VC method. So based on that, they want for X amount of for X amount of money, they'll want X percentage of your business, right? So that varies per stage, right? But kind of in Series A, I guess that's between 10 and 20% can vary, across that. So again, that can always be negotiated, but VCs are kind of somewhat standard across Series A, Series B, Series C, Series D. The ultimate goal from what I've seen in my experience is that you don't want to be left with less than, at the end of all this journey, right? You don't want to be left with less than 30% of your business, of your ownership in your business. Otherwise, VCs are very aware of that and what's called the cap table. So that's when the table where you see how much you own or how much each person owns the company, both in investors and employees. If they see founders with the founder pie as being less than 30%, it's kind of a flag for them. As well, this person doesn't have that much skin in the game anymore. So when it comes to team and can be able to top your investment, that may be seen as a flag, right? So it's important that as you raise fundings throughout the stages, from like angels to seed, Series A, Series B, Series C, you actually factor that in to make sure that your cap table at the end of the journey, if you're either go for IPO, fingers crossed, or get acquired, that you're not left with less than 30% of your business.
Right. So would you decline the deal if someone isn't giving you the huge amount of money and offering you asking for 40% of equity at first seed round stage? Would you reject this deal?
Yeah. So again, that's based on what I mentioned. Yeah, it's kind of very tricky to understand, like to give up 40% of business right off the bat. Also, I would also factor in kind of your goal with your business. So if your goal is to kind of exit as quickly as possible, then potentially you want to take 40%, and if you can sell, but that's too early in my opinion, because you have to factor in that as you raise more and more money, you will be diluted, right? So your ownership of the business will be less and less and less because you have to give up equity to attract investment from VCs. So 40% at C stage could potentially be too much, yes.
Right, Lorenzo, thank you very much. Now I would like to connect Evgenia, if you don't mind, so stay tuned with us because we get a bunch of questions in the chat now. So we have the next question. I think it's actually very actual. at which stage we need to consider intellectual property, or maybe worry about that, and is MVP stage too early to consider intellectual property question? How to protect intellectual property actually at early stage of your business? What are the steps, and if there is any advice we can give to Paul? So Evgenia, if you can join us, I just made you presenter again, so please join us, and let me yes.
So the question is how to protect the intellectual property at the beginning. Well, I think it depends on how on the shape of this intellectual property, because if a product is meant to change quickly, probably you don't even want to protect it, because it will change, because you win people. So it depends on the product. If you have a company, for example, based on a patent, that is a case in which you want to start early with trying to protect your intellectual property. But maybe if you have just an app that is based on common services, and you provide common services, and you try to protect the UI, for example, then that is not easy. And also it depends on where you want to protect this intellectual property, so where you are based. In the US, maybe you see, for example, cases like Tinder, in which they tried to protect their mechanism of swiping. So I think it depends. It depends on where you are, and it depends on what is your company based on, and if it's something that is something that is meant to stay on that way for a long time. So, for example, if you have the formula of Coca-Cola, that is meant to stay for a long time, so you want to keep it. If your product, let's say that Mark Zuckerberg protected Facebook in 2004, you understand that now it's not valuable, any kind of protection, because the product changed, and this is how it should be for some products. So it depends on how much defendable is something that is meant to stay the same for a long time.
I would like to ask opinion of Sharon, because I guess it's quite critical in marketing. What if someone try to copy your, I don't know, branding, your design, or some marketing strategy, or some visuals? How it works in terms of the market, and how to protect some marketing activities, and maybe some great ideas from early stage startups. Any advice you can give? And I guess for sport brands like Nike, I think on day to day they have to protect own intellectual property and all the products they have. So any advice you can give what to do?
Yeah, I'm working in those sectors. There's huge teams, there's legal teams in place, but we did have it. Even when I was brand marketing manager in the UK, we had a product that it was the name of the product, the name of the trainer, essentially, and it was already trademarked to another company in the UK, which was a huge issue for us. So obviously we couldn't take a global product and actually launch it. And I think, again, it comes back to just having that foresight of having a think about where your business is going to be in the longer term, and not just thinking, I'm in this market right now. So what does that name translate to? Have you got everything that you need to be able to launch in those other markets? I mean, yes, we're on a global platform, but ultimately, when it comes down to individual markets, there's obviously very different trading regulations, etc., that goes on in those markets too. So I think it's just thinking with that bigger vision. And it's also thinking about how you manage teams remotely as you grow. So right. One of the crucial things of the go-to-market role that we had, and at that level, and this is what a lot of the big brands do operate with, is so that you can police what the individual teams within markets are putting out there. So whilst you might think I'm going to keep it in my global team, you will ultimately at some point, and even working with social media agencies who have said that, you know, it's only actually working for them when they do put local teams within place. So it's having a think as to how you actually translate what your marketing is that you're sending out from global, and how you toolkits and everything that you would want to that market to how that market then takes it into their market. So you really have to think about that, and there's a structure and there's a whole process around go to market as to how to do that. I'm more than happy when people get to that stage and think about it. But I think it's really thinking about how does that then translate if all of a sudden I'm in 3 more markets, and how do I keep a control of my brand? How does it look? How does it sound? All of those things you do need to consider at this stage. So.
Right. So my question: what if, for example, some startup founder can make a research and realize that there is a similarity in startup name to some company, let's say in the same market in the UK? What to do? Any legal advice, or maybe it's time to go to lawyer and ask for, you know, some kind of protection or some battle in terms of who is owner of the brand name and so on?
I mean, I'm definitely not going to start offering any legal advice for sure, but I mean, we did have that obviously as an example. So I mean, we had to take it legal, but ultimately that was because we'd made the product, we'd named the product, but we'd actually not done our research enough within the markets to actually understand that was going to be a problem in a huge market as well. So, you know, all the R&D that had gone into that and a huge expense. I mean, the tooling and recouping a tooling that it actually costs to produce and put into the market, a training, you know, I'm going to say a sneaker, I sound all American there, but trainers, that's a huge amount on the bottom line once you introduce that. So to then actually have a product name that you're launching globally and then have a market that you find you can't actually put that out into. Yeah. And again, you've also got differences within local translations as well. And we've seen that also. You know, I remember Nike coming out with a basketball shoe, which offended a whole community because of some script that was written on there, and people can look that one up for themselves. So I think it's just having that foresight to just think that's those stages through. Don't think that it doesn't matter. Really work that process out and how that's going to look within each individual market. So I think coming back to your question with that, it's if it's in the UK and it's something that, you know, how valuable is it to your business? How crucial is that going to be that you've got someone that's very close to you with that? So yeah.
Well, I would say the reason why I guess it's quite important, because it may be potential investment risk for investors. If they can realize there is a kind of similarity in names, or maybe exactly the same name of startup, or there is the kind of the clashing of similar startup ideas coming around few companies on the same market, they might be kind of concerned about investing capital into your company and thinking, what if we need to again spend money for legal advice, and it can be, increase the expenses on this direction of the company, which probably they don't want to deal with, especially at early stage of the business.
No, it is a really good point. It's a lot cheaper to address it now than it would be down the line. Absolutely.
Right. So how to make a research? Where to go? Google? I don't know. Company's House? Any advice? What should startup founders do?
I'm probably the expert on this. I mean, we were blessed that we did have legal teams that would look into. So, I mean, I'd rather pass that question to someone that could. But I mean, certainly you're looking at that legal side, looking at Company's House. I mean, simple things, even if you're looking at sort of like a name vine to understand what URLs are available and what social media channels are available with that name at this very beginning, because I think some people can even overlook that step. It's like, great, I've got my company name, I've registered at Company's House. I can't actually get a domain on Twitter under this because somebody else has it. And therefore, what else does that mean? Who is that company? So, because all of those things are super important, because once you do people start Googling or voice, asking about your brand, And I think as voice increases as well, I mean, this is another one super important to start thinking about right now, because people, that's why brand is so important. Obviously, people are going to ask for a pair of trainers. They're going to ask for Nikes. What product?
Right.
So I think voice is something I'm working with a company here actually on voice up in Manchester, and it's fascinating when you start to think about it from that perspective, because that's like stripping every channel that we know right now away and just going, would someone be able to ask for your tech startup product by name? What's
Right.
the answer? And I think that's a really interesting one, because I think that's, I mean, we've seen the rise in voice activation, voice products. So I'm sorry, I've gone off on a tangent there, but I think it really is a good example of why brand is so important and what you're actually positioning out there.
And do you think the use in personal brand can be sort of protection for startup to be recognized or to be unique on the market if everyone knows, who is the leader of the company, how the leader, builds marketing message across his personal brand and also make a connection or his or her personal brands and connection to the company. Maybe it can be also, good kind of free protection points rather than spending a lot of money on trying to make a copyright, agreements. I don't know. What would you say?
That's an excellent point, and I think we're seeing it more and more now, where CEOs are very much the face of their brand. If you look at Gary Vaynerchuk within I'm going to reference everyone within the world here, but they're building brand recognition by them being out there and putting themselves out there. And if you just look at what customers are connecting with now, it's all about transparency. So being able to have that relationship, I mean, that for sure is equity within the brand if you take those people out of that business. So, it's definitely something you can build. Where does it feature in a balance sheet? Possibly not, but it's something that is definitely valuable to, I think, if investors were looking at it. You can probably answer that one better than me, but I think, yeah, it's they're certainly becoming the face of the brands, that's for sure.
Well, thanks a lot, Sharon. And we have next question regarding modifications to the UK standard articles of association to make this template more appropriate for a startup based on your experience. Any advice, or someone can answer this? What's maybe just they need to be more clarification. So advice in regards of any modifications to the UK standards articles of association. Any advice? What's this? If you just can kind of clarify the question, what this is about. So we are happy to answer. And yes, Sharon, thanks a lot. Stay with us. And I just now would like to connect Mark. Mark raised hand. Mark, I'm connecting you to the discussion. So Mark, please join the discussion. Maybe you know the answer, or maybe you can contribute to our discussion about kind of involving personal brands to protection of startup idea.
So startup idea first, I would say the best time to think about protecting your idea is yesterday, and the second best time to think about protecting your idea is today. And some of that about, is there anything worth protecting in our idea? And as Sharon rightly said, the way the product is perceived, the brand, the naming is so important. But so also is those things, how are you doing something? Is there something unique and patentable or registrable about what you're doing that makes it difficult to copy or for somebody else to produce the same kind of features and functionality? So IP isn't just about naming. It's also about functionality and access to market. So always have that going on in your mind. What makes our product so interesting, unique, and irresistible to customers? And how can we stop anybody else having that same advantage that we have? So that's one thing. Yeah, standard articles of association. Oh, I think your accountant has sold you one there, haven't they? So I like to think of articles of association as a bit like a prenuptial agreement. So if you're going into, I'm going to go somewhere here. If you're going into a marriage and you're both wealthy and you're both intellectual, then you think about what could happen here, what's good, what could happen, but what would happen if we divorced? So think about those things about entry. How do we bring other people into the company? And how do we get rid of people we don't like anymore or who aren't contributing to the company? What do we feel about that? So think about those type of clauses. Think about how the control of the company will move forward in 10 years' time. The 10 years' time from Sharon, really good timeline. Think about what it would be like in 10 years' time when you've got $2 or $3 billion of revenue coming in. What would you like the company to do and build that structure into your Articles of Association? So agree it in principle between yourselves. Don't go overboard, but agree in principle between yourselves, and then get some legal guy or gal to suggest how that might look in the Articles of Association. That's how I would answer it.
Thanks, Mark. And we have just another following question. What is the best way to conduct market research about potential market or potential end users, especially in case of tech startup and your end users on daily normal internet or web users? Any techniques, any advice on that?
Talk to them. Have a verbal conversation with them, interview them, survey them, watch their behaviors, see how they react to an explanation of what your benefits, your product might do. Okay, get close to your customers, understand customers. So that's 5 things I've given you there.
Well, it's great to talk, but if there is any kind of the methodology, shall we bring the notebook and write down, create a kind of the questionnaire list, or to kind of how to systemize the answers and put them into action or put into some kind of decision-making process?
I would create a customer persona, and I would design a customer journey map. You may know them as user stories, and they should be based on actual users, actual people who will pay you money. So for myself, I would talk to people, I would plan my conversation so that I could tease out the basic customer's view. It depends on the stage of your idea, whether you've never talked to anybody before or whether you have 200 users and nobody's paid you any money. So horses for courses on that. But yes, create a customer persona, which should include social media, should include income, should include other elements which are really important to your business model, and then map it out on a user map, on a big wall, lots of post-its. Yeah, you love post-its.
Right. And I guess also the following question to you, Mark, and Sharon, if possible. Don't you think that actually now it's becoming much more difficult to get traction from potential customers, to make them excited about your MVP or your product, because there are so many options now, so many different startups, different products. How to make the potential customers excited?
If your idea isn't exciting, it's not exciting. Okay, if there are lots of competitors in your market, there's lots of competitors in your market. If you have something unique and different, then it will stand out in your market. Having lots of startups, if you're competing for funding and there is nothing which makes you stand out from the competition, you haven't sold anything, there's no market, there's lots of competitors, there's lots of stupid money floating around with people given lots of money to do nothing, then how do you stand out? How can you prove that you're going to stand out? But I'd love to hear what Sharon's got to say about standing out in a competitive market.
Well, absolutely. If you don't mind, I would connect Sharon to answer that question if possible. Again, Sharon, don't you feel that we have more pressure now for startup founders to come with completely new ideas, because so many ideas already been implemented, right? So where to come with this kind of completely new creative approach, or do something completely new? How to switch on your creativity and make it work now? What do you think?
First of all, I'm not one of those that I see a competitive market as a really positive thing, because then there's always there already. So it's just a case of how you cut through. And back to what Mark was saying, it's absolutely understanding who that consumer is in the first place. So I've just replied in the chat actually with a few ideas, but first of all, ask. It's amazing how few people will actually just talk directly to their customers. So I think you can glean a lot from that. Once you start building out those buyer personas, that's the only way. And if you look at any of the top marketing agencies, where they will spend the majority of their time is on research. The research phase is crucial, because from that, what you're going to learn from your customers is where their attention is, what language it is that they're speaking, how do you talk to them. When you build out buyer personas, you're thinking about each of those different segments. And what I would give as advice to the startups is have a look at where that minimal viable segment is, and where you can maybe connect with just that small audience to start with, where there's a little bit of white space that the competitors in that crowded market isn't serving very well. So where can you come in and create some better disruption around that particular sector? Because once you've got that and you've proofed that, that's when you can start to move and you can start to expand, because you've already got your foothold there within that smaller segment. So yeah, I think online, I mean, there's tons of places where you can research. Even if you're looking for some bigger market size data and it's documents that are chargeable, I mean, there's always an advantage of being a student or knowing a student who can quite often get a couple of £1,000 worth of research for free. I'm not sure if I should be saying that, but it's okay. But certainly, I mean, even right now, I'm learning so much just by looking at social media and just understanding the dynamics and the shift and what's going on in society right now. So you can learn a lot around sort of like the community groups and things like that too. So look at where they are, look at what they're talking about, build out those buyer personas, and look at where you can stand out and what you can bring. But yeah, I mean, being creative, and I think that's where, as a startup, you've got to wear so many different hats. And one of the things that I did with a business that I was looking to purchase was we needed graphic designers for it, and the business wasn't in a position where we had funding to be able to do it. So I went and worked with a local university. So the students ultimately needed projects to work on, and we got some good quality work. So it's really, yes, there's kind of ownership there as well that you want to, but you choose that whether or not you take on those ideas. So
right.
Kind of being creative, but having a creative outlook, if that makes sense, as to where you can source when you've also got limitations on budgets as well. But yeah, can't stress enough, understand your customers.
So do you think the failure in marketing is down to the kind of lack of understanding of customers, isn't it?
I truly believe, I think when you'll see campaigns even now where things that things are rubbing people up the wrong way, and I think it's really quite difficult now as brands. And I've been seeing a lot of insights today. You know, Google Trends, Facebook IQ. There's a ton of resources out there that will give you deeper insights into it. But I think that's why it's so crucial to just get really right down there and ask the questions. So even if you've got that core audience where you're going to get 20 really strong opinions that are valid opinions, then you're going to know how to actually talk to that person. It's just, if you think about, and what I always say with content is conversation. So as soon as, I think people think, I've got to throw something out, I need to be on this channel, I need to be on that channel. But unless you know what you're going to talk about, and unless you have to look, and that's what Mark mentioned before, you map that consumer journey out. And there's some great online tools as well that can help you do that. When you start to think about that and you go, right, okay, I've put this out there now, what's the next stage they're going to be? That what funnel is there? What part of the funnel are we sending them to? What am I going to say to them next? You know, because you're having a conversation. You can't just put something out there and then not speak to them again. So and I think that's where digital marketing for sure has changed the game with this. So it's harder to cut through. Yes, organic is definitely harder to get traction with. That's for sure. But I think when your messages connect, and messages can only connect when you truly understand what that person is wanting, needing, and you're talking their language. So yeah.
Right, and just to kind of also to ask you one more question, if possible. So, for example, as you know now, a lot of companies, they're trying to build some marketing or communication message around the current situation. They're trying to make maybe a new campaign or even some new products in connection to the coronavirus, or maybe again to the kind of the situation in general. But at the same time, it's not something like which can keep working for 5 years. It's definitely sort of short-term strategy. Do you think startup founders, especially early-stage startup founders, should focus on creating this really short-term marketing strategies, or it's much more important to make something much more fundamental and again maybe something which can work for maybe next 5 years? I mean, again, startup life is so short, but still, what would you suggest to try to focus on this kind of the trends in terms of what's going on with everyone, or still to try to find some unique points to connect with your target audience?
If you're at the stage where you're not already out there with customers and you don't feel like you have to react, no, absolutely keep your mind focused on the business and the vision of where it's going. I mean, we're seeing countries now coming out of this. I mean, yes, is society going to change from this? Absolutely. But I think there's a real opportunity to have a look at that. And it's interesting. There's some great stuff. I've been listening today to it's the American Society of Anthropology, and there's actually quite a ton of webinars on there and how it's affecting different markets. And there was actually a journalist from Financial Times on there and talking about there's never a greater need right now than actually bringing anthropology into these other industries. So, I mean, essentially what we're just talking about there was knowing and understanding who your customer is. So when you can connect like that, if you want to strip anthropology down to its really basic level, it's that understanding. So yes, you can have a look at what shifts, and there's definitely opportunities that we're seeing around that, and which things will stay with us, which things will disappear with this. But I think keep your 5 to 10 year vision, focus on that. And yeah, I think that's where your energy will be best spent right now.
Right, and we just got one more question from Paul regarding the marketing. With so many different marketing channels out there, which ones should we focus first and allocate the right amount of resources, time, money, dedication per channel? Where is the balance, if any?
Easy one. Easy. And people think, I see this all the time, in that people think they've got to be across every channel. And I'm a firm believer, and it comes back to what we said before, understand your customer. Where is their attention? And I'd rather see someone doing one channel really well because that's all you've got time to do, if you think about the different content and doing content well across 5 different channels, it becomes really difficult, because it doesn't really work trying to do one type of content and just spew that same content across all those channels. I'm not a believer in that. I'd rather do something really well and connect on that channel and grow that, and then you're going to start growing your business because of that, and therefore then you can start going into the next one and the next one and the next one. So I'm not going to give you one channel, because it varies across different businesses, and only you will know that by doing your research with your customers.
Right, Sharon, thank you very much. Insightful discussion. And now I would like to connect Marika. Marika, if you can give us a few points about this, maybe some kind of add-on opinion on the same topic, how to dedicate, or maybe how to find those this focus. And maybe you can, at early stage, you can realize that there are multiple channels which can work. So how to make a test, or maybe how to validate the marketing channels, and maybe still to make a focus, as Sharon mentioned before. What's your opinion?
I think, yes, all being said, customer is what guides you in the choice of the channels. And if we want to add, let's rephrase the same concept from a different point of view, given that I come from the data, the numbers point of view. Okay, so one of the concepts that our colleagues in marketing use is the cost of conversion. So how much does it cost to convert a lead into a buyer, basically? So one of the elements might be, for example, to do some correlation, if some of you is affectionate of statistics, and do some data analysis and see how many customers. Okay, let's go to the basic. How many of my potential, before Marcus, Sharon were talking about the persona. So agreeing on the fact that the persona is my ideal client, my target. Okay, how many of these persona are on, let's say, Facebook? And I wouldn't like to mention any of the specific channel, because I agree with Sharon. It depends on really on the company. But how many of them are on Facebook? How many of them are on Twitter? How many are in the backyard? You might not need them. It's enough to go out and talk with them. So it really depends on where they are. And the more you have together in one place, one platform, one website, one channel, and the lower should be this cost of conversion, the cost of acquisition. Okay, so there might be a way, and data analytics is one of the tools that might help in some cases to understand actually the correlation between how many and the quality of the dialogue that you can build with them, based on their feedback, based on the interaction, based on how many like they put there. You see, okay, there are many people who actually interact with my communication if I go out to this channel, and that might be because you produced a better communication, or it might be because there is a something more similar to your persona, again being the persona is the ideal customer. So I hope this offered another angle to repeat again the same concept. Basically, the focus is go where. One line manager for different things. One line manager of mine was saying always, and I think this is something that applies to the industry: follow the money. So in marketing, we should say follow the client, follow the potential customer, go where they are, just really find them out wherever they are. Is it the library? Go to the library. That's the problem. Go where they are. There's no any single rule that applies to each company. And I'm afraid that one of the mistakes sometimes that we tend to simplify. So we tend to find the answer like, okay, now please tell me, is it Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or LinkedIn? We want to have the readily available answer. The truth is that people who work like Sharon in marketing, they put a lot of work before finding which is the right channel. That's why it's not easy to receive this answer, and that's why I think it's fair to generalize, because each of us as an entrepreneur has to do the homeworks and understand. So the question might be, how can I understand, rather than how can I understand which is the best channel, rather than where should I put my focus? because there is a backward trajectory in this question. And then if we wonder, if we ask, how can we understand? That is where it goes back to what Mark was saying. Ask them where they are, check with surveys, or use any other tool that brings you out there and enables you to understand where they are. It's really like when you look for. I typically like to do very simple analogies, and I beg your pardon if they might go out of the language of the business, but I think we really need to understand how the logic works rather than each answer to the. It's not a quiz where there is the right answer. So it's really like, if you are alone at home and you're looking for a group of friends and you wonder where they are, what would you do? What would you do? You pick up the phone, you send them a message on WhatsApp. What would you do? And your objective becomes, hey guys, where are you? I want to join. I want to go out with you. This is not the right time to have this kind of analogies when we have to say all indoor, but um, it's the same. As an entrepreneur, you have to wonder where they are. Where are my friends? In this case, my friends are the potential customers. And use surveys, use WhatsApp, use all the, really visit those websites where you think there is the discussion that is relevant to your startup. And that is how it really works. There is a lot of work that you put before understanding where you put your focus, basically. So I hope I didn't complicate enough, or a lot. But, and please, I'm sure that Sharon might amend some of the things that I said so far, or Mark, in fact.
Marco, thanks a lot. And just a very quick following question from Mohammed.
Sure.
Is it now good time to target remote workers? Kind of the standalone topic. How do you see the that post-COVID pandemic? Do you think it's the right time to focus finding to build remote team and find some remote workers? How do you think?
In these days where we all try to entertain ourselves with all these cartoons or sort of memos to to laugh a little bit, I received from my MBA cohort, and I'm sure you have seen around, and there is this type of cartoon, and he says, "Oh, who drove the digital transformation in your company? The CEO? No. The CFO? No. COVID." Uh, so I think that is partially the answer. Is this the right time? I think that is the best thing that we can do right now, possibly, to leverage. And if anything else, at the moment on LinkedIn and wherever you go on websites, there are a lot of these articles. The last one that I spotted, I think today, was from Harvard Business Review about the opportunities and how we can leverage this remote working forced situation. That doesn't mean that is the only way to do business. That doesn't mean that we will always, from now on, we will work only remotely. But I also like to recall what Mark said. The best thing to do, he was talking about the IP, is yesterday, and then the second best chance is today. So it's not a matter of today being better than tomorrow, but every day is a good chance for us to think, okay, how can we leverage reducing cost and maximizing the organization and consequently the profit? So yes, that is a good thing to do now. That I wouldn't say is the only right thing to do now. There are so many things that we can do. Even I would say that, and this again was around in some post, taking advantage of this situation to actually step back a moment and think. I think that one of the big cons of the entrepreneurship is that we are always under pressure. We have to, and we said in so many ways today, we have to do marketing and okay, which is the channel, and then we have to look at the operations and the product and the customer. We have to find out where the clients are. Why don't they tell us? And, okay, it's all a mess. We always feel the pressure, and in all this pressure, we possibly forget to give time to ourselves to think, and to give time to ourselves to come up with more creativity. So that is one of the things actually that we might take advantage of at the moment that we can travel. So why don't we switch off everything for a moment, and not now that this is very interesting and insightful webinar. Why don't we switch off everything and we open a nice book? Before there was a great suggestion about possible books. Why don't we use our at this time to liberate a little bit of creativity? So yes, the way we talk and even the advice that admittedly, unfortunately, we give is do that, do that. You have to find out where your customers are. But let's not forget that it's all a matter of creativity as well. So I want to be a bit controversial in giving this answer. Is yes, look for remote resources, but don't forget, if you are the entrepreneur, take the time to switch off everything and think a little bit. Let's see how many ideas you can come up with. That might be a nice way to use the indoor time, and quite different from what we've been suggesting so far.
Mark, thanks a lot. We now have just maybe 1-2 more last questions, so feel free to ask if you got a few. We select the best question of this particular session, so please, if you got any great question, feel free to ask. And because we select the best one and we have a special prize, I have one last question from myself, which I would like to ask all our special experts today. And Mark, please, if possible, 1 minute answer. Sometimes we have challenges, and after that, we get the right answers to those challenges, and we know, oh, bingo, like we know what to do. But sometimes it's too late. We already, gave up on our startup, and we probably, stopped doing that. So my question would be how to come through this kind of falling down situation, or maybe how to get up again, and how to launch new business, and how to come through this moment when you realize actually you tried your best but you didn't manage to build your successful startup. How to find the motivation and energy to come again and to build new company, find new co-founders, and keep entrepreneurial journey moving. Is it time to go to a mentor and ask for, I don't know, some sweet words, or what's the better?
In 1 minute, I will try to summarize the two components of the answer. Okay, and again, I will go a bit wider. Forgive me for maybe not giving the right, the straightforward answer. First one is a bit more motivational. I'm sure we all have heard about the sentence, "You never fail, you succeed, or you learn." So I think even if we don't find the right answer at the right time, that is a good learning for the next time. And that may be the motivational side. A bit more technical instead is about in business, when you look at strategy, which as you know is one of my passions, is they say strategy. What is strategy? The definition of strategy. Strategy means to make choices, to decide, make decisions. The decision-making process. I was reading a paper a few weeks ago, and it was talking about this, and it was saying, and it will be very short in summarizing it. It was saying we are used to look at the decision-making process as an event, a binary event. So we are in front of a decision and we choose A or B, or A, B, or C. Okay, but an event. Whereas we should educate ourselves to learn about accept the decision-making process as a continuous journey. We keep pivoting. We talk about pivoting with startups. Now, the decision-making process is very similar. There is not an end point. So it's true that we might come up at some point with the right answer to the wrong question, or with the wrong timing. And that is where we will pay. And yes, we will learn out of it. But by any means, let's not look at the decision-making process as an event where, oh, I went too late. No, we are growing. The most important thing in entrepreneurship is to grow, to challenge ourselves, and to keep growing. And in growing, at some point, we will use the mistakes that we did in the past. I hope I didn't do much more than 1 minute, but I hope that is a bit helpful as an answer.
Marka, thanks a lot. Enjoyable conversation. Thank you very much for your insights, your answers. Now I would like to connect Mark. Mark, if you can answer the same question, how to get up, how to come through some, kind of disasters or some kind of downs and wake up again and create new startup, new business, and move it forward. Any advice, or is it time to go to your mentor and have an honest talk? If you can connect, and also Sharon, also I would love to connect you, and if you can also share your opinion on that, please.
Get some therapy. No, okay. Get over it as quickly as you can. Scream, shout, talk to anybody. Talk to your mentor if you're lucky enough to have one. Talk to somebody else who's successful, somebody who's failed. But heal yourself if it's been a tough experience. Oh, that was me. Anyway, so talk to people, I would say.
And talk to mentor, right? Is the mentor the right person to talk about that?
Oh, some mentors are bastards, excuse my French. Some mentors are absolutely useless as people, but really successful as business people. So if there is somebody you respect who's been through a painful divorce, or somebody you respect who has always been achieving things, go and have a chat. Talk about it. I would say talk to a coach. Oh no, don't do that. Okay, no.
Sharon, what's your advice?
I've got a terrible confession because I was answering a question, so I missed your question. I'm kind of getting. Can you please repeat it?
So the question is how to survive during your down situation when you gave up to build your startup. How to get up again and build some new company and get new idea and build new team.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things that I've seen so much with clients where it's one person or two, especially the single people startups, to keep maintaining that motivation. And honestly, as a consultant, I've been more as that co-founder level. You've been there as a supporter, and even building my own business, it is, as you say, it's super important to stay connected. It's super important to understand that this is just part of running your own business. It's not an easy ride at all. And as long as you've got that passion and that drive there, the good days will outweigh the bad days for sure. But yeah, I think it's talking to people. It's been part of things like this. I mean, I think this is such a supportive network to have as you go through this process, and to know that you can ask those questions, and you can have bad days, and you can have days that you're just not motivated to do stuff. And then you'll have days where you're on fire and those are good days. And just remember them. And I mean, I'm a great fan of sort of like I have this vision board for where my business, what I want it to be. I've got the 4 different streams of where I'm working towards. And I've thrown quotes up there that came from action. See that every time you go past, you always remember why you're doing
That was just for me. It's a canvas because I work with them all the time, and I keep my vision canvas about what my business is doing, and I take it out and have a look at it and add new post-its to it. Did I mention them?
I love that. And I think as well, it's very easy to get overwhelmed because there's so many areas to focus on, and you can feel that way. And I think having, I mean, every week I've got another whiteboard. I love whiteboards. And then I've got weekly goals, but I'll break those goals down into small achievable tasks. And it is being a bit more strict with yourself. So, there will be times you don't feel like doing things, but you need to as well. But I mean, and then get outside and go and do some exercise. And just when you're feeling overwhelmed, just take that break from it. But just remember it's worth it. It's
Mark, Sharon, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your answers for all these questions. We have a few more experts for our final reflection, our final discussion. Thank you very much, and please stay tuned. We select the best question and we award our best question just in a few minutes. Sharon, thank you very much, and Mark, incredible. Approach with your poster and all your reflections about your, how your company looks like. Thank you very much. And now I would love to connect Lorenza and let me check. Evgenia, if you can join us and tell us how did you come through some ups and downs and what did they kind of how to come through, how to do not blame yourself, and how to get new motivation for making some new venture.
So, is this regarding the previous question about something that you stop it and you start again?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you're very tired and you cannot continue something. But if you take it after some time, this is great because it means that you're still passionate about it. And the world changes every day. So the best way to think of an old project is asking yourself if you're really still passionate about its purpose. And once you're sure about it, which should be already sure, since you wouldn't take it, maybe you will take another project instead. Once you're sure about your passion, I will think about rethinking it entirely. So starting by the assumption that the world has changed, so you don't have the same assumptions that you had when you started. So rethink the way you developed the product, understand how the technology changed and how it can be provided better. And so, as I've seen in some messages, the key thing is why. So you're passionate about something, but why? Then rethink it to make it simple, extremely simple, and be retrospective. This is the main thing, because at that point, I think that you should continue on that thing, and but you have to take the most of the creativity from your time off on that project and take all the other inputs in order to make it successful.
Thank you, Lorenza. Your advice.
Yeah. So just to echo some of the points that have been made, I think I would potentially break it down in 3 points, right? So the first one, again, like as Marco said, I believe like it's not failure, it's learning. So you have to see this as part of a process. We are also very biased towards the super successful entrepreneurs, the Zuckerbergs, the Elon Musks of this world, but we potentially do not see or forget about the people who start businesses and potentially do not work out. So try to think of those instances as well. And I think one good thing that helps is especially talk to people. Talk to people, your mentors, people in your network, but also people who've been through the same situation, right? And what they got out of it. So almost try to see them as as another example of people who are moving forward as well. Because it's definitely not the end of the world if your business idea does not succeed, right? And I guess the last point that I would make is sometimes it's good to take a step back, and I think it's been said already. So do not feel pressured to go back at it again, right? Because you have to improve yourself. You kind of your first idea didn't work out, so you have to try again until you succeed. And I think when you get into the habit or that cycle of I need to do it, I need to make it, I need to succeed, that's when it's even more mentally taxing. So sometimes it's better to take a step back, potentially join a startup, join a corporate if that's what you want, to get exposed to new ideas, new peoples, new networks, so that you really get the best learnings, or you can apply your learnings from your last startup to the next one.
Lorenza, thanks a lot, and exciting conversation and amazing questions and answers. Thank you very much. Now we have the winner of today's session the best question of the session, how to build a tech startup. So we have a special prize for Paul and for Eve. Thank you very much for your question. So our special prize is the free invitation to our Eligent Film Festival on 26th, 28th of November. So please leave your email address or LinkedIn details, so we will contact you and give you update. Just a quick info as well. So on 23rd of April, we have a special session, how to win a startup pitch competition. And we're going to have some examples of pitches, and we'll try to give a real-time advice from our special guest as well, how to make your startup pitch outstanding and how to make it work. Thank you very much, everyone, today. And I think what is important, what you're trying to do here is to help each other and to consider every day and every step of building some successful companies as a learning process, as we all discussed. And I think the most important thing is just to kind of define what exactly we learn and how to use this knowledge in order to become, more wise, more successful, and more productive, more efficient. So, and I'm extremely pleased for all of our experts. Just one more summary. Marka. So all of our invited and special guests today, they are all online. So feel free to find them via LinkedIn. Marka, Sharon Wright, thank you very much. Evgenia Galiota. So Evgenia, thank you very much for your contribution. And Mark Elliott, thank you very much for joining as well. And so a variety of different opinions on the same questions. And Lorenza Espinoza. Lorenza, thank you very much for joining, and hopefully see you next week. And thank you very much for staying with us. And yes, enjoy the rest of your weekend and stay tuned for more sessions. Very thankful for your contribution. Yes, feel free, please share your LinkedIn details so everyone can connect you, and we will share the details for our audience later on. So please feel free to leave your contact details. We have a few minutes to summarize. So yes, and our guest can join you. Yeah, great. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, and please enjoy your weekend and Saturday evening. It's a great time. I'm switching the YouTube channel now, so please stay here if you want to, and just share your contacts. I'm switching on.